Hello, welcome to Into the Fire, a Burning Coal Theater Company podcast series.
Hello, this is Jerome Davis. I'm the Artistic Director of Burning Coal Theater Company, and I'd like to welcome everybody to Into the Fire, the Burning Coal Theater Company podcast series on all things theatrical. Burning Coal often interviews artists, directors, actors, lighting designers, playwrights, but we don't that often interview stage managers, and that is what we're going to do today. So we are going to delve into the mystical and mysterious world of the stage manager with the stage manager of our current production, Rebecca Peace. Rebecca, thank you for joining us today and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start off by talking about the play that you're working on for us. This is Once, which is a musical. And what was your first experience with Once? Did you know it before we contacted you about this play?
No, I didn't. I had heard of it. I knew it was a musical, but I didn't. That was pretty much all I knew. So doing this production was my first introduction to it. And I'm really glad that I was introduced to it because it's a great show.
I think so too. Yeah, I'm very impressed with the material and with the way that y'all are handling the material. You had done other musicals, I presume, earlier, right? What differentiates stage managing a musical from a play? Is it just the need to be able to read music and follow along in that way and call cues off of a series of musical notes as opposed to words written on a page? Or what's the differentiating factors in those two, do you think?
Well, in the rehearsal process, I would say the difference is there's a lot of different types of rehearsals that you have to go through. There's usually choreography rehearsals, music rehearsals, as well as blocking rehearsals, whereas with a straight play, it's pretty much getting the blocking schedule down and that's it. So musicals add more complication to the rehearsal process in that way. And then in terms of getting into tech and calling the show, yeah, there's a different feel to calling the show with music. I prefer it, honestly.
And it has to do with the pace, the tempo, or what are you looking out for? When you're calling a musical that you don't necessarily need to look out for it in a straight play.
Yeah, the tempo, definitely looking out for that. I don't read music per se. I can follow along, but a lot of it is just for me feeling the music. I mean, having all of those music rehearsals and sitting through those is very helpful because at this point, hopefully I know the show well enough to be able to know how the music is interacting with where people are moving on stage. Sometimes music and visual cues have to happen at the same time. So just being familiar with that, being as familiar with the show as possible, plus just knowing the feel of the tempo of the music and how these performers are putting them on.
Really true. If you think about it in a straight play, one can call cues off of lines primarily. There may be some moments in some plays where an action dictates a cue. Somebody enters the room or turns on a light switch or something like that. But generally speaking, if they're saying the word at a particular time, you'll call the cue whether they're standing upstage, downstage, left or right.
Yeah.
But when you add in the element of movement or dance and then music on top of that, then it seems to me that there's a much more subtle set of circumstances that are dictating how a show is called. What else do you do? So we've talked about charting the movement and calling the cues. What else does a stage manager do for those who are, rightfully mystified by the process of a stage manager?
Well, I always kind of describe the stage manager as like the middleman throughout the production. We're not necessarily calling all of the shots. We're not directing the show. It's not our artistic vision, but everyone is carried out so that the artistic vision can be carried out. I think is the most important part,
How,
which is
how,
why I kind of use that middleman term.
how important is it to buy into the artistic vision for the stage manager?
It's good to have an understanding of what that is, especially the director's artistic vision, so that um, you can make sure things are being consistent throughout rehearsals, I think is one of the most important parts of that. Um, yeah, just having an eye on it so that because we kind of have our hands in every pot,
Well,
uh,
do you
knowing what the artistic vision is important.
once it's been said or clarified by the director and the designers, do you have to like it? Do you have to feel passionate about it yourself, or does that help? I think it does
It
for actors, right? I think actors want to buy into that, but I'm just wondering if stage managers need to.
certainly helps,
Yeah,
but I don't think it needs to be the stage manager needs to be as passionate about it, I guess is the way I would put it. Like I said, because it's not our artistic vision, so we're not the ones who
right.
like get all those fine details in there about what it is. But yeah, having an appreciation for it, I would say is helpful.
One of the big things that we do in theater, maybe the only thing really that we do, is to tell stories, and telling stories means communicating ideas from one human being to another, and with hope that some impact will occur. And so I have a sense that with stage managers there's a distance there. There's a sort of a subtle membrane between the stage manager and that whatever's being presented in the story. Is that true, or do you ever get caught up in it in such a way that you begin to believe in, that phrase, the suspension of disbelief? Do you ever get caught up in it and go, oh, wait a minute, I missed my cue here, or something like that?
That's a good question. Let me think. I think I kind of try not to get super caught up on it in it so that I don't, miss cues during the production. Um, Part of that also I think is seeing the show 20 times kind
Right.
of helps uh with that suspension of disbelief. But being passionate about the show is definitely important to me, and being passionate about the story we're telling. So I definitely try and buy into the story, but I don't necessarily it's not really my goal to be super caught up emotionally, I guess, in the show so that I can make sure my job is getting done.
Do you have an on-off switch? Are you able to, when you go to a play that you're not stage managing, are you thinking, boy, that scene change was a little slow, or why was that light cue late, or are you able to invest in the storytelling?
Yeah, sometimes I will get caught up in it, but I try not to, especially during the actual, meat of the show. When during the transitions, maybe I'll
Maybe,
I'll I'll
yeah.
start thinking about light cues and things like that.
I do it as a director. I will often think, where's the pace? Where's the pace?
Mhm.
Keep it moving, uh,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. And how did you get here? Is that something you envisioned for yourself as a child? Did you meet a great stage manager who opened your eyes to the power of that position, or how did that happen?
I'm so sorry you cut out for the first part of that
Okay.
question.
Just wondering how you got to stage management. Did you start as an actor, and what happened? Was there a role model that opened your eyes, or how did that come about?
Yeah, so I was an actor in middle school, so I was in three musicals, junior musicals. And then in high school, I went to a high school where I could tell that I auditioned, I might not get into the shows because in my middle school, everyone got in. But that wasn't the case in high school. So I decided to try out crew because I had always loved uh, musicals. My mom really likes musicals, so I was listening to soundtracks when I was little. So I wanted to stay in theater. I decided to do stage crew. And I got pretty close with my stage managers when I was a freshman, and as well as my two other crew members who were my age. So we became co-stage managers our sophomore year of high school. And then again in college, I wasn't sure if I was going to continue doing theater. I said I probably won't have time for that, and then I immediately wanted something to do, so I became a PA for A Midsummer Night's Dream at NC State, and then I just stayed on the stage management track. And my stage manager for A Midsummer Night's Dream, who is also my stage manager for You're in Town, the musical, they were really helpful, and I definitely learned a lot from them.
Mhm.
So I credit them as my mentor.
A lot of times, people who stage manage begin to migrate into directing. Has that thought crossed your mind yet?
The thought has crossed my mind. I haven't made any steps to do that, but that's something I've thought would be interesting. Maybe assistant directing would be something I could try out.
Sure.
But stage management is my main goal, my main passion.
I imagine that to be a director, it helps to know all the facets of a production and how to temper the different needs of the different elements and that sort of thing. And nobody knows that better than the stage manager, I think. So it seems sort of common sense that stage management would be saying a training ground makes it sound like, that it's less important in some way. And I don't mean it that way at all, but it does seem like it's fertile ground for a continuation in another aspect of theater, which is directing. And that would be where your own vision would come into play. Um, do you have role models that you are interested in, either from the stage management side or any other artist in any other discipline that's work has influenced you, writers, painters, photographers, anything like that, actors?
That is a very good question. One that I haven't really thought about. I don't know if I have anyone specific. I don't really know any professional stage managers to really pull inspiration from. I think just being in the theater community in general is just there's always inspiration everywhere from working with different directors and doing new shows. I tend to do a lot of shows that I haven't heard of before, which is always great because then I get to learn about new shows.
Sure.
So no one specific comes to mind, but just the theater community in general is, I think, always constant, like different forms of inspiration, if that makes any sense.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I have a wife who is a visual artist and has a degree in painting, and so she drags me to museums all the time and gets a little bit frustrated when I look at a sculpture and say, or a painting and say, that would make a great set for King Lear, But I do get inspired by that. I get inspired by music, when I was acting years ago in an outdoor passion play, I played Pilate, in the passion play, and I would listen to Lou Reed on headsets before I would go on stage, because there was something about that wild, dark music of his that felt right to me. And so yeah, I think people can get the inspiration from all places, but stage manager is thought of more as a technical area, when we're filling out our grant forms, the money we pay to stage managers goes under technical contracted rather than artistic contracted. And I always feel weird about that because I feel like it's almost quintessential artistic endeavor in a way, because you're not just doing one thing, you're doing everything and you're keeping it on track. You're not doing it, but you're managing it.
Mhm.
So I almost feel like there should be a third category just for stage managers. What do you look for in directors? Are there particular aspects of directors that you find particularly compelling, or things you don't like to see in directors? And
I think I love when directors have kind of a big picture in mind, not just of the art, like of the artistic vision, of course, but also of the whole rehearsal process. Sometimes it's very easy, I think, to get caught up in the day to day, but having that whole big picture of the whole timeline, I think, is very important. And honestly, it's just a collaborative, nature, being able to have good discussions, problem solving is super important. As long as you're able to have a good problem solving discussion with a director, anything can get done because problems are going to come up no matter what.
I've worked with directors that didn't really know what they wanted, and were frustrated by other people's inability to ascertain what was going on in their mind without it
Hmm.
being clearly stated out. And sometimes I feel like that is given way too much credence in our business. That sort of ginning up support for an artist because you can't understand them or can't understand what they're saying. And I've always felt like clarity was a really important aspect of directing. But the other end of it is holding on loosely. They talk about hold on but not too tight, as a director. And because things happen in the rehearsal room. Are
Yeah.
you on the lookout for that? Are you when you're watching a rehearsal, are you look this is I'm not sure how to phrase this question, but I'm going to give it a shot. Are you
Okay.
are you watching to see that what happened before happens again, or are you watching to see what new thing is happening or might be happening that could be interesting? And have you ever had the experience of seeing that and then realizing that nobody else caught it, and it was now up to you to decide whether to present that idea to the director or not?
I think I've definitely noticed that idea you're talking about of, oh, something is different now, and we'll see how it goes if it's going to stay like this. Um, I don't know if I've ever had the thought of, oh, I'm the only one that caught it. It's up to me now. Because sometimes I'm just under the assumption that, um, the director did catch it. The actor is making a choice. Because it's not up to me what choices the actors make. That's totally on them, and not a skill I have as much as they do.
Right.
So I think I definitely feel the fascination of it, of seeing, oh, something's different now, and we'll see how this plays out through the rest of the rehearsal process. Will it be the same again tomorrow? Will it go back to how it was? Will it change again and evolve to continue to evolve? But I think part of that is still in my mind this is the director's artistic vision and the actor's choices that they're making. So it's not really up to me, I guess, how or if it's presented.
I agree with you about that on one level, and on another level, I feel like there's a lot of talk about that word that you talked about, collaboration, and on some level, I feel like collaboration means it's everybody's responsibility. There's a lot of this idea in the theater of staying in your box, and then there's this other idea which is equally hoary, which is everybody get in everybody else's business, and I find that very disturbing too. But
Yeah.
I wonder if there isn't a world in which a technical person could suggest an idea that would be fundamentally an artistic idea, without that being perceived as stepping out of bounds or something like that. Um,
Yeah, that's definitely something that I think about a lot, especially during the rehearsal process. Especially kind of the middle of the rehearsal process before tech, but well, after things have been grounded enough. So yeah, I definitely am trying to always walk that line, kind of figure out my lane. And if I make a suggestion, is that stepping outside of my box? But also knowing, hey, I can make it just a suggestion, and if they don't take the suggestion, then that's totally fine by me. It's
yeah,
not that big
that's
of a
right.
deal.
Throw it out. What's the worst that could happen? They say no, and
Yeah.
then we're right where we were before. So yeah, I would agree with that. I've worked with actors before, who sort of steadfastly, um, refuse sounds too harsh, but just wouldn't ever do the same thing twice. It was like part of their mantra. I will not. I'm going to play. I'm going to play,
Hmm.
and I think when we're very small children, that's what we do.
Hmm.
We don't ever get in the sandbox or out on the backyard swing and say, yesterday I did these three things. So let's do that again. You wouldn't even think of doing that. And so I
Yeah.
think there's a good deal of respect that I have for that kind of artist. I wonder, does that put pressure on a stage manager when you work with an actor like that? An actor that kind of always is reinventing the moment.
I don't think I have worked with an actor that is like everything, something was different every single night. In my mind, though, there's again kind of like a fine line with that from a stage manager perspective, where I think, it's you're the one on stage, you're the one who gets to play, and I can't control that. But there are something to do to to call the show and run the show. So,
Yeah, yeah,
I'll there's there's boxes where you can play, and then there's boxes where I might say, No, that's where the line goes, and I'm gonna need to be able to hear it, and I'm gonna need you to walk up stage then so that I can turn the light on."
if on Tuesday night they turn on the lamp and on Wednesday night they smash the lamp on the
Yeah.
table, that's not, yeah. But I'm really talking about actors who kind of feel a moment and respond to the moment, uh, based on what they're feeling and what they're receiving from other actors, as opposed to what they did yesterday. Like
Mhm.
trying to recreate what they did yesterday or what they got a good note about or something. I don't tend to give good notes to actors mostly, and I don't think they like that very much. But I always felt like good actors know when they've done well, um, and um, and so I tell them, this is great, this is fantastic, but I won't say I love this line reading or I love that moment in the show, because I don't want them to try to go back to that moment. I want them to do what they did to get to that moment,
Yeah.
and maybe it'll be different the next time. But I can imagine that would put a lot of stress on a stage manager, having to, especially if you had a room full of actors working in that way.
Yeah, like I said, I think it kind of depends on what that moment is, because the actors sometimes changing it up every night keeps keeps it interesting to me. And I'll get pulled in, kind of what we were talking about earlier. It'll help me get pulled into the story more, and
Right.
not be kind of like, all right, this is the 11th time I've seen this show, and I love all the shows that I do, but sometimes by show number, however
Yeah.
many, it's okay. I'm
Yeah.
at this point of the show now. So yeah, when the actors keep it interesting on stage every night, it's interesting for me too.
Last question. I think how much does the audience come into play in your job?
I think so much, so much. I one of the last is it was a comedy, and the first week the audience gave us nothing, and it just made the show feel like it dragged on, even though the actors were doing a great job.
Was this the Noel
Um,
Coward? The Noel Coward? I saw. I think I was in that first audience.
well, the second week the audiences got like better every single night. We were getting our laughs, we were, getting our reactions because there were a lot of ghost shenanigans going on, and that it made the show feel so much more dynamic. Um, and so yeah, audience is a big part. Like last night, for once we had a small invited audience, and every time we got some chuckles, I was like, yes, we did, we did it. It makes me very excited.
Yeah. Does it
For the
change
crowd and also
does
having
it
fun.
change what you do though? Does it change how you call the cues or anything about your job?
Might subtly, if I can, read that the audience is laughing a bit more or laughing a bit less, uh it'll change exactly when I call cues sometimes, especially those transitions after songs and stuff like that. But it mostly really affects kind of the energy. And I think it does for the actors as well. So when everybody is like feeling that energy up, to me, it always makes the show better and a lot more fun for me. I feel like I do a better job
Keeps
just
you
because
on your
I'm
toes a
in
bit.
it. Yeah.
Well, you and I have another Zoom call in 2 minutes, production meeting for the next play. So I'm
Yes.
going to let you off the hook for a full 2 minute break, and I'll see you then. Rebecca Peace, stage manager for Once, the musical, which opens at Burning Coal tonight, October 9th, and runs through the 26th at Burning Coal. Tickets available at burningcoal.org. or 919-834-4001. Rebecca, thank you very much. I appreciate all you've done for this show and for us.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you for having me. I'm very proud of Once, so everybody get your tickets.
And come more than once.
Yes.
Take care.
Bye.